This is the Lockpicker 1969, and welcome to my channel, and welcome to the next episode of Interview with the Lockpicker. Today's guest is Birdie. Say hi.
Hey everybody, how you doing?
So, where are you from?
I am from the cornfields outside of Peoria, Illinois.
Okay. So how and when did you get into locksport?
It was 2 Octobers ago. I started doing some research on physical security for the cloud region that we had installed at work in New York, um, and came across some Deviant Olem videos, and it was I think the elevator keys video that really the talk at last or at Hope Hackers on Planet Earth that really got me curious about what locks were really about.
Okay. So, so you got into lockpicking due to work, um, but how from there did you transition into diving into it on your own? So, like YouTube, and who were some influencers on there? And
Yeah, I work for a company that uses a really good VPN, so YouTube always recommends me. Generally, people from England and Locknoob and DMAC were the two lock pickers that got recommended to me. So I started watching those guys, and DMAC genuinely loves locks, and he's just an all-around good lock sporter. Makes challenge locks and some nice picks as well. And then
yep.
Lockney, of course, we all know and love that guy.
Okay. And you mentioned something about Gravity Karma.
Yeah, I found him along the way, probably a couple of weeks before I got into the subreddit, um, and then progressively from there the Discord.
Okay. So, what was your experience like diving into the community?
It was in the Reddit side of it, it was just Reddit. But who was it? It was forget exactly who it was. It was Pickin' in Paradise, actually. He recommended that I go to the Discord, and yeah, it was immediately like finding an old group of friends that I just not seen in a while.
Okay. All right. You mentioned something about ClueNet.
Yeah, we it was a organization of computer enthusiasts, mostly kids under the age of 16, that were from all over the planet. We had pretty much everybody but Antarctica represented, and the that was my first online community experience. Those guys were amazing. We built a lot of fun things, including the anti-vandalism bot for Wikipedia, FluBot NG,
Okay.
and it was LPU was very reminiscent of that to me. Just a bunch of friends who have a common interest.
Okay. So, you mentioned something I recall about a sobriety group. What's that about?
Well, yeah, that's actually a kind of an offshoot of LPU. Um, some of the members who have current and prior substance abuse issues, we all got together and made a little private server for us to essentially have a rescue plan for everybody
So,
who needs somebody to talk.
a good
Just,
support group.
uh, yeah, exactly. There's a good dozen of us on there who we have all the notifications enabled, so
Okay.
sit there and feel like, hey, I feel like I'm gonna have a drink for the first time in 9 years. You've got a couple of people who are going to be sure you want to do that, buddy.
Yeah.
Let's talk about why, you know. And it's been a really good thing.
Sure. Okay. So, um, go ahead. Sound like you were going to say something.
Oh, I was just going to say that the uh, the reason why that was started was one particular member um, was going through some issues, and we couldn't really think of a better way than to start up a server. And progressively through there, over the last 6 months, we've had uh, a lot of new members come from LPU. some of our in real life friends as well.
Okay.
So if there's anybody that is actually going through that, we are more than a accompanying or accommodating group of people. So just DM me on the LPU Discord, and we can get you some
Yeah.
friends to hang out with.
So anybody that would like that kind of help to reach out to you on Discord.
Hmm.
Awesome. So you're Black Belt Dan 1. Can you talk about what your journey was like? Because you did it in a really short period of time.
Yeah, it was about 3 months. I went from, hey, how do I pick this like master lock number three to um, picking a MIWA Unite in the less than a school semester's worth of time. Um, it was a lot of picking on phone calls, lots of late nights waiting for various items on the computers at
Yeah.
work to finish up, and talking with the LPU guys that got me there.
Cool.
Um, I will say that the Discord was probably the most influential thing because I had world experts on just about every aspect of lockpicking who I could just say, hey, how am I being stupid here? And they would tell me.
Okay. All right. So, what would you say is your favorite aspect of Locksport?
I would have to say it's a lot of things, but mainly there's a lot of stress relief that comes with it.
Mm-hmm.
Figuring out these deeply complex systems of interaction, how the pins and the sidebars or the shear line interact, whatever the mechanism is. There's a certain skill set that it hones that is something that I enjoy flexing a little bit. It's like a muscle where you have to
Mm-hmm.
investigate something that's essentially a black box and you know nothing about it.
Yeah.
And then you progressively find more and more details in there. And I've always enjoyed that process. That's why I do what I do for work, and
Yeah. A bit of
most of my hobby
reverse
outside of that is
engineering. So, a little bit of,
exact.
yeah, reverse engineering. Yeah. Okay.
There's something fun about saying, look, this entire team of engineers spent like 5 years designing this lock, and I just screwed it over in 45 minutes. So
Yep. Hail the Conqueror. Um,
exactly,
so,
exactly.
you have a YouTube channel. Can you talk about your channel, kind of how it started and what you're doing with it now?
Yeah, it's a mess, I have to admit. It has a lot of personal videos still, just other aspects of my life that I put in there. Um, Mainly sharing with the LPU members that are my friends, and the it started just as a dump for videos a long time ago, and then as I got through the belts, it's kind of a requirement to video these things being picked and gutted, especially once you get into the high security locks. You have to even verify where pins are at and what position they're in, and all sorts of fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it was mainly that, but I've also along the way used it as a way to kind of condense bits of knowledge. Like set bounce or the jiggle test is something that it takes a long time to really understand. And sometimes I find ways to illustrate and I put them there. And I plan on eventually actually doing something that's kind of produced and educational, but I haven't had much free time as of late.
Sure. So, one of the things you do have on your channel that I want to dive into is your impressioning and using a Lightbox.
Yeah, yeah. So the Lightbox, Dark Box as its official brand name is, just a little pun on or a play on the words there, is a small, essentially flashlight in a way, but it has a microcontroller and some uh, controllable LEDs that you can change the colors on independently, and a couple of buttons on the outside, and you put kind of whatever optics you want in there. I have jeweler's loops. I have an old Kodak projector lens that I use, and it the main goal of it is to pick two colors that give you more contrast
Hmm.
on a shiny surface that's really only one color. Um, and if you use blue light and a couple of other combinations, you can actually make it appear that the impressioning marks are just deep, dark pits in a bright, shiny surface.
Oh, cool.
So when you poke it in there, it takes me usually less than a second to really identify that mark and know exactly if that's a mark. And you can see much shallower impressions than you would with just a single color LED.
Hmm. Okay. So I use one of those little desktop LED microscopes to do
Hmm.
impressioning with, and unfortunately, sometimes it depends on the angle you have it at whether you can actually see what you're marking. So
Yeah, very shallow depth of field.
yes, yeah,
I kind of designed it with that in mind that you might want to swap out optics. So I have a 10 times loop, a 30 times loop, and then this like 12 and a half times. Like I said, it's an old projector lens from like 1960, 1950, and you turn it upside down and it's the most perfect thing ever. And you just look at it and the mark just shows up. There's
so
no real fighting or looking, it's just there.
well then here's a question for you. The microscope I use has two different stalks with an LED light on each. Are you
Mhm.
saying that you could potentially use two different filters with that's two different colors to get the kind of effect that you're talking about?
That is actually kind of the basis of the effect. Yeah, it's
Okay, cool.
uh, you limit the number of wavelengths of light that hit the surface, and your brain kind of already lies to you in a lot of ways about what you're seeing.
Yeah.
Blue light, for instance, nobody in the history of humanity has ever actually seen blue light in focus. Your eye prioritizes green and red light and focuses with those, and those will always be sharp and in focus. Blue light, because of chromatic aberration, the different bending of the wavelengths, and also the lens doing a little bit of diffraction in there. Um, it's fuzzy, so your eye lies, or your eye tells your brain the general area that the blue is, and your brain lies to you about where blue is sharp and where blue is not sharp.
Huh. Okay.
You kind of use that little bit of a trick. You're already relying on this essentially hallucinatory part of your brain
Yeah.
that's doing things out of your control anyways, and you just give it another color, and for some reason it really works out well. It gives you so much contrast that, like I said, the impressioning marks just look like deep dark black holes.
So, which two? If I am limited to two filters, one for each light, which colored filters would you recommend then?
Blue and green seem to work the best.
Blue and green.
uh,
Okay. I'll have to
yep.
see if I can't find a way to do that. Very
Your eye is almost equally sensitive brightness wise to those two at high brightness levels, so it works out pretty well. I also find that orange is a really nice one with the green as well.
cool. Okay. That's cool. I'll have to give that a try. That's very interesting.
Yeah, it was kind of an accidental discovery, and just kind of works out pretty well.
Yeah. So, that's that's a lot. So you've done it seems like a lot of research on this. What do you do for a living?
I'm a research and development engineer for a cloud provider out in England called Sivo.
Okay.
So mainly I am playing with either cutting edge hardware or cutting edge software or broken old software trying to make it do new stuff. Just depends on what kind of mood we're in that day.
Okay.
um, but yeah, it's my whole job is reading terse, horrible technical documentation and figuring out what it's actually trying to tell people.
Okay.
Um, and we also have a bunch of very smart people inside of LPU who helped me along the way understand a little bit um, about optics that I didn't know.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah, I've been involved in a very deep dive into AI and machine learning and all that. So, um,
Yeah, that's literally what we're doing right now. We're building a managed ML and AI hosting platform built around Kubeflow. So you start off with Python, Jupyter Lab notebook with GPUs, got big A100s on there, and you can play with your GPT models and do all
Hmm.
that fun stuff.
Cool. All right. So you got into computing. So can you talk about your introduction to computing? And you mentioned about your first calculator.
Yeah, yeah. Computing was a weird thing for me because I grew up on welfare. We were ramen and Totino's frozen pizza household.
Yeah.
So um, it was about fourth grade, I'd say. Yeah, fourth or fifth grade. Fourth grade, yeah, that was 10. I went to school or went to church and asked the sound guy because he worked for a computer company here in Peoria if he had a calculator because we were just too poor to get one. And he said no. And then he had this like moment where he had this funny look on his face, and I couldn't tell if it was like a stroke or a stroke of evil genius. And it might have been both, honestly. Um, but he said, "I do have something though. Give me 2 weeks." And 2 weeks later, he had parked his car as far away from my parents as possible that week. And he said, "Follow me." So we leave the church building and go out to his car, and he says, "Stand here." So I stand on the sidewalk, and he brings over this gigantic Toshiba T1000 laptop with DOS 2.0 embedded on a chip, two 720K floppy drives, 700-pound brick AC
Yep.
adapter,
Yep.
and the original bag for it. And he hands me two floppies. He says, "This one has BASIC on it, QBasic, and the other one is blank." Then he hands me the 1980s. It was the 1980 version 1 IBM Engineers Basic Programming Language Reference Manual. And it starts at A and it ends at Z and it doesn't explain anything.
Yep. Just a bunch of terms. Yep.
Exactly. And he hands that to me and he looks me dead in the face and says, "Once you can write a calculator, you deserve to have a calculator." And that was how I got my first calculator. I went to the library and got a Basic for Dummies book, and using that and my IBM reference manual, I wrote a calculator. And that wound up actually serving me all the way until high school. That thing had been updated to do trigonometry and
Wow.
calculus and other things along the way. And
So,
it was a very big gift he gave me. He erased the
yeah.
poverty.
So, did you ever circle back with them and show them what you had learned?
Yeah, I still keep in contact with him. I just sent him the photos a couple weeks ago of me getting to meet Steve Wozniak down in Tampa, Florida at my company's tech conference. So that was a pretty sweet moment. You know, you gave me my first computer. As a result, I got to meet the guy who gave you most likely your first computer.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So, one of the things you're into is photography. Can you talk about that a bit?
Yeah, I got into photography probably, we're looking at 3 years ago now. I bought a camera to take some pictures of the kids, and a friend of mine owns a events operation company, and they were running a concert. And he called me and said both of his photographers had flaked out on him and asked me if I wanted to shoot a concert. I'd never done it before, but I went and I got 1,500 really nice pictures. They've been used as album covers and Facebook profile pictures and band photos for ever since. And I started a nonprofit photography organization around that called the Music Scene for the Central Illinois area right now, where I go out and I photograph smaller, less known artists and give them professional photos so that they can
Oh, that's cool.
go out and market themselves a little bit better.
Very cool. Anybody we would know?
Not yet, not unless you're into underground dubstep.
Okay.
You don't strike me as the underground dubstep guy.
No, not particularly.
You might have fun at a rave, though. I mean,
Hey, I do mix it up once in a while.
You got to try new
It,
things.
if you've ever watched some of my videos, I've got some different types of music I put on there. So all right. So last question before we wrap up, and this is another interesting aspect of you that I found fascinating. So you are a music producer. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I do produce music. I have two styles that I make. One is done entirely in a computer with lots of fancy plugins and effects. And then I have a live production rig, which is a bunch of hardware synthesizers and a large digital mixer with 40 channels. And um, I do all the mixing, mastering for that, and the music production. I don't know music, so my music's not like super great, but it's listenable. And I have a good time with it.
You go by what you hear.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
There's rules that I know about music theory, but I really don't know why I would want to use a major seventh, suspended ninth, whatever, minor fourth, whatever. I don't know why. And when I make chord progressions, I don't know what they are. But it sounds good.
but yeah. So you're basing it on what you hear, and that it sounds
Yeah.
good. So
Exactly. And it's kind of fun because I don't really have any musical talent, but I have a decent ear, so I can kind of program my synths to play the music for me, and then the rest is just me having my taste applied to it and
sure.
changing things and saying, I don't like that, and that note needs to be something else because it gives me a headache and other weird non-musician things, you know?
Yeah. Well, you definitely have a very wide variety of interests, I have to say. So, is there
Yeah. Much for the
anything?
annoyance of LPU.
Yeah. Is there anything you'd like to say to our audience before we close?
I would definitely like to say never ever count yourself out. At one point, 10 years ago, I was homeless for a year and a half, and now I'm quite the opposite. Um, and as far as picking goes, pay attention to what the pick is telling you.
Hmm.
Uh, More often than not, when I've had problems, I've put headphones on and not even use them as headphones, just earplugs so that I stopped listening to the locks and I
Hmm.
started feeling with the tip of the pick only.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Um, that right there has gotten me everything from ASA Twins to Opnus MMXII. I just picked a V10 Prison Mogul the other day, various Kiso style locks and things like that. It's all the same thing once I stopped listening to them and
Yeah.
listened to the book.
I,
It wound up working.
I'm sort of the opposite. I have to rely more on what I hear because I have neuropathy and it dampens what I do feel in my
Oh,
hands. So it's,
you should get a contact mic and plug it into a pair of headphones with a headphone amp, and
yeah.
you'll
Okay.
have a better time of hearing things that
Yeah.
way.
Okay. Well, this has been a fascinating interview. There was so much to talk about. You're into so many different things. So
I'm a bit
I've
of a
really,
nightmare,
yep,
yeah.
I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
I appreciate your time and I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. So all right, with that, we'll close this one up. I want to thank everybody that tuned in and listened to the interview. If you are a subscriber, thank you. If you are not yet a subscriber, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications and hit like on the video. And thank you for listening.